Welcome everyone. Taylor and everybody else. Appreciate everybody being here to our meeting tonight. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We are missing two of our councilmen. We'll see if either one of them comes. So we're missing David Baird tonight and Dustin White also. So hopefully wherever they're at, there's okay. We've asked Chief Watkins to give us an opening prayer, and then he'll also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Chief.
Our Father in heaven, Lord, we ask thee as we sit in city council meetings that we're able to absorb thy feelings and decisions that come upon us. And we do so in a agreeable manner and set forth in your desire. Father, we ask you to bless the residents of our city and thank thee for the moisture we've received. Or we ask thee for the moisture to melt off appropriately without much issue. Bless our leaders, Father, that we give them wisdom, good decision makings, empathy, compassion. And we say these things in my son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item we have tonight are the minutes from the last meeting.
I move we approve.
Okay. Have a motion and a second by Councilman Allen. Any discussion on those? Seeing none, all in favor?
I would like to just add what a great job Sunshine does with the minutes. Appreciate that. I talked earlier, but on the record, I just appreciate the thoroughness of those. So thank you.
All right. We do have, at this time, our public comment period. So if there's anyone here that would like to comment, we would ask that you come to the mic and state your name and for the record, and then you'll have up to 3 minutes to address the council. Are there any here tonight who would like to take that opportunity? Yes, ma'am.
I'm on the agenda. Do you want somebody beside?
You know what, let's go ahead and, is there anyone else here who would like to, and then we'll definitely, and is Julie?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to take opportunity? Maybe you will after Julie, so Julie, go ahead. We'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you guys for letting us come and speak tonight, giving us the floor for a few minutes. I appreciate your time and your commitment to the city. My name is Julie LaChance, and I'm the parent of a Tiger Muskie swimmer. And I'm coming tonight as an advocate for the Muskie Swim Club. I have a background in swimming, but mostly I'm just really passionate about seeing the club excel. We see just some immense potential, and now is really the time to open up some conversations about minor changes that would really allow our club to grow. The biggest issue that we face right now is pool time. For our fall season, we have a total of 3 hours and 45 minutes for practice. For comparison, Bernal
Is that weekly, daily?
weekly for the whole week. Yeah, we do currently 3 days a week.
Okay.
So just as a comparison, Bernal has 5 hours a week, 1 hour each day. And some kids usually full 5 hours and some don't, based on the level, of course. And they're really flexible right now. They have an extra half hour. So they're an hour and a half spinning. And just kind of researching other teams across the state and nearby surrounding areas. The very minimum that I can find that was published on the web was 5 hours a week. So, just as a comparison, and also, in the city, when people have access to more pools and facilities, obviously that number just kind of escalates almost exponentially. But So having that bare minimum of 3 hours and 45 minutes is really detrimental, to our swimmers right now. We also have a handful of kiddos who are on the musky team who are registered with USA Swimming, and they, kind of take it to the next level and travel to USA sanctioned meets within the state. And the Vernal team kind of is our mirror. We work together with them, but we rely so heavily on Vernal for those kiddos. So it'd be really nice to have some extra time in the water for those kiddos. Swimming is a sport that's really physical, requires a lot of conditioning. So, and we understand there's one pool, which we are super, super grateful for. And there's, a lot of activities to fit into that pool. So we really just want to open up some conversations and communication and brainstorm some ways that we can perhaps multitask some of those activities, to try to fit everything in. Maybe looking at numbers, what maybe is not benefiting the community, what could we do, switch things around. The swim team is growing. We have 55 swimmers registered for this fall season, and we expect it to continue to grow.
Is that just the Tiger Muskies?
Yes. Yep, that's a Tiger season.
Okay.
I know that veteran Mr. Butterfield has worked with Coach Renee and the other coaches. We're hoping that we can perhaps get a different kind of schedule for next year, next fall season, maybe a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that kind of limits the conflict, especially with the high school team. We know most of their meets are on Tuesdays, sometimes Thursdays, but when they have a meet, that takes out the Muskies already limited practice time, so just kind of being more flexible, switching days around when need be would be awesome. And in the summer, maybe there's a dead hour, we can say, hey, swim team, if you want to use this for starts and dives or technique, or just kind of some of that flexibility would be great. There's lap swim hours, which are awesome, but they're really kind of horrible for growing kiddos. Early in the morning, late at night, on lunchtime, it's hard to take advantage of those. So anytime we can kind of stick another lane in there during other activities would be super helpful.
I have a quick question,
Yeah.
sorry. The time that you are getting now, what day, when are you getting
For
scheduled in right
fall
now?
season, which is where we have our biggest cleanup, we do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 5:30 to 6:00.
Okay.
And what grade level, sorry,
All, we don't, and the requirements are at level 5 of the swim lessons, or go through tryouts. And we have, so 8 to high schoolers.
When's open swim at Evan?
Evening ones are Mondays, 9:45 to 8, Fridays 4 to 6, Saturdays 2 to 6.
Okay, so it varies depending on the day.
Yeah,
Okay.
currently.
Okay, sorry.
Right, it's all kind of a fluid picture, so. We know that the more that we can get the kids in the water when they're younger, the more it's gonna benefit, when they get into high school. We have kiddos that do great in our region, but when you get them even out of, go to some of those US in the middle of the pack at best. And Utah swimming as a whole is even behind a lot of, many of the other states. So getting more pool time, it just kind of ups the chances. And we've been also discussed in the future being allowed to finish out the season in its entirety. Mr. Butterfield again has been great. We've talked about next season. In the past, we've had to end 2 weeks prior to the end of the official fall season. So 2 weeks before Mead and Vernal were done, and that's just due to a lot of the pool needs close for maintenance and lifeguard training and things like that. So again, opening up some communication and trying to squeeze more in there would be beneficial. The second biggest issue right now is funding, and more specifically the type of funding. Currently, we only have one budget category, and that's just for equipment, which is great. Every sports team needs equipment. But we want to make the team an inviting space for the kids to be. We'd love to have some flexibility in the budget to allow for awards at swim meets, heat of winners, incentive awards, to promote character building and provide like a t-shirt, team picture, the three standard things for a sports team. And right now we don't have any of that. And parents we're not allowed to donate that currently. So working something out so that we can get that, within policy would be amazing for the team. It would allow us to create kind of not a different environment, but somewhere where the kiddos are feeling encouraged and pushed a little bit with all that comes along with that. And we also would like to be allowed to accept sponsorships to perhaps ease that burden. Last year we had to turn down $5,000 because it just, I don't know, all of the ins and outs, but for some reason it wasn't feasible. And we'd like to be able to obviously allow that so that we can kind of take some of that burden off the city and provide some of that stuff for the team. And so again, we're super grateful to the community for providing a space for the team to be. Swimming is a wonderful sport. It's like the best total body workout you can find. But it's also a sport of longevity for the kiddos. Like I said, 8 to high school, it kind of, it's not just season to season for most of these kids. It lasts them their whole student career. And we've seen the kids just learn individual goal setting, self-driven motivation, but also the camaraderie on the team is amazing, and it's awesome to watch them blossom. So anything we can do to make this a good team better would be awesome.
Well, thank you, and you brought up a lot of good information and good points. One question I do have, and then we are getting past that time, but you mentioned the school. This is a problem that I've seen in a lot of different sports. And so you have the school and they're doing their thing, and then you have all of our feeder groups on just about any sport you can think of. There's not real good communication. Is this the same situation as what I've seen before, where there's not a lot of communication between, how well is that happening between the school and Tiger Muskie Group?
That's more of a question for
Would you like me to answer that?
Yeah, if you briefly, if you could, and then and because I see that as being main things that we're going to have, hurdles that we're going to have.
Well, because the facility is the thing that we have to use, we have to work through the facility as well as through the high school team. And so, I can say what my needs are and I can express those needs, but if the high school has already had an agreement with the swimming pool that they need the pool anytime they have a swim meet, then there's really not much I can say about that,
Sure.
So
Okay.
it's just it has been a little bit fuzzy.
Okay. Well, we're meeting with some individuals from the school on Monday, and so we'll probably bring this up a little bit. We'll get with Edwin. I know Edwin's probably aware of your situation and aware of some of your needs, and so we'll get with him as well and go through some of these things and just see if there's a better way to do it. And then also, like I said, we're working with the school. As far as funding goes, that's a totally different subject, but it's something that we can look into. I don't understand why $5,000 couldn't be received by your club. It seems strange to me, but and we can look at those at a later time as well.
Do you charge a fee to the kids?
We do, yeah, they have to pay for the pool pass, basically, as any other attendant would, and then it's a $25 a year.
We'll get information, and we can't make a lot of decisions tonight. This is just a comment period, but we definitely appreciate who in here is here to support Julie. All right, got some young ones here. Thanks for being with us too. You guys, this is the most exciting thing you'll do on a Tuesday night on here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, let's move to our first item. The committee appointments that we have tonight is just for the, no, not the economic, the planning and zoning committee. We did have 2 respondents, and we felt like they were pretty good candidates. We have Del Tribe, and we have Kyle Smoot, who has applied. We ran those names past some of the staff, and the staff felt like they would do a pretty good job, and so I would present those names to council for ratification or appointment to that position. Any comments or concerns?
No, I think those are both good candidates. I would move we approve, especially with the staff supporting that.
A second.
Motion and a second by Councilman Cloward. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Motion passes. Perfect. And Sunshine, you'll reach out and thank you. Recognitions. We'll turn some time over to our city manager, Mr. Bake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I have Mr. Claiborne come up here, please? But you don't want to. Yeah, come here, Ryan.
This is pretty cool.
Turn this camera off.
Well, face council first, and then we'll show everybody. So we want to present, we're not presenting, we want to recognize our water source department. And Roosevelt City received from the Rural Water Association the most improved water system of 2022. And just to show what kind of a big deal this is, this past week, I received quite a few text messages and emails from other city managers complimenting us on our water system, and hats off to Ryan and his crew. They have done an incredible job in a time where most cities, especially in the state of Utah, are scrambling and water is such a huge issue. Our water department has been phenomenal and just incredible in what they do. So just glad to recognize Ryan and his department for this. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bake. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks.
And will you send our gratitude to all of those we work with?
Yeah.
I know we appreciate it, especially this year. I don't know if anybody understands or realizes, but we've had a record year for snow and a record year for water leaks.
Freeze ups.
And freeze ups. So they've been out a lot, full time, 100%. Keeping us in water, so we appreciate that. Statistics, we have Chief Rockwood with us. Go ahead, Chief.
Before we get to the statistics, I have 40 firefighters that we brought in tonight to let you be introduced to them. And I'll start there because in 10 minutes they have wildlife training class they got to go to next door. So,
Where are they?
Chris Taggart, go ahead, stand up. So this is Chris Taggart. I don't know how many of you guys know him.
He's a good chef.
When I shut down the tech. So you made it down there all
Oh, yeah.
All right. Dan Butcher over here works for the school district, working at Centennial Elementary right now. Thanks, Dan.
Welcome, Ben.
Jeff Jarvis, wanted to make sure you knew where he works with Sunbelt.
Coming from work.
Came from work to here, so if you went to class online. Jeff just retired from the Navy and felt like fire department was a good place to go next, so we appreciate that. And our other one is Taylor Ralph.
Oh,
So maybe I we work with the city. We appreciate that. And just while we're there, we want to make sure we recognize not only the city, but all the employers. We wouldn't be able to have our volunteer fire department if we didn't have employers that allow to leave and take care of calls that come up at any time of day. So we appreciate employers in the city and surrounding areas that allow them to do that. For us to have staff departments.
awesome. Well, you guys are, I have to say, and I've been on the fire department for 5 years. Well, you're right. But honestly, you're part of the best and organization when it comes to fighting fire in the Uinta Basin. And I'm not being biased. That's just a fact. These guys do excellent, and so we really appreciate your willing to volunteer and be a part of the team. The training, the way they treat their guys, keep up on training. I mean, just everything is just doing an excellent job. So know that you're a part of a great team. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll let the floor to you, go next door and enjoy your next door.
Roll up in that bag. Tin sack.
Yeah. But next once, 2 nights a week. So. All right, so I'm not gonna go through these real in depth, so if you have questions on any of it, go ahead and toss it out there. But first page is just our 22 stats. We're breaking down in 7 different categories there of how many calls we went on and where in which jurisdiction each of those calls took place. The most calls that we had, and it's been that way for quite a few years now, are fire alarms. A lot of that is smoke alarms and CO alarms, and a lot of them we attribute to Vivint and all the others that came around and sold everybody on their alarm systems. So when you burn the toast or you burn the bacon or whatever else burns, until we show up, they don't even know their alarm's going off. So a lot of those calls are from that.
Is
The
there,
other thing is on the CO alarms and even your smoke alarms, they have a light. And I don't know how many people know that. But a lot of the alarms that we get, when we get there, we take the alarm down, we look on it, and it's already expired, and they need to replace them. So that's training, there's a lot of that, and you guys need to go through and replace your alarms, pull them down and check them, and yeah, expiration dates on it.
Chief, one of the quick concerns I had just looking at it, and it looked like we're down from the year previous. I appreciate you putting numbers, was the false alarms, because that, I mean, that is a lot of work and effort. If we could, I don't know how we educate the, population, but it would sure be nice. And like I said, getting some of those Vivint or other things, fixed maybe would be helpful as well, but.
Yeah, I don't know, I know I had a firefighter that come through and he said, oh, I signed up for it. I told him to turn off the fire. Because he's been on so many calls, he said, I want you guys to come to my house. It's a good feature to have. I'm not sure if it's something that they can program in, that they get a notification first, and they can call them right up and say, tell us you want to come.
Right. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. Like I said, I wish there was something we could do on the false alarms. I mean, we need the people there. I'm not, but at the same token, that seems like a little waste of
And it's
manpower.
a catch-22.
Right.
Right, because when
We have, I'm not naming names, but we have one that we get paged to 2 to 3 times a month on a regular basis. And our response time gets worse and worse and worse. And I shared with them the same boy that cried wolf. One of these times you guys are really gonna have something. But I remind them, one of these times we're gonna get burned. So it doesn't matter if you've been there 20 times or the first time, we need to show up as if this is.
Do you guys ever set up at like UBIC or some other community events where you can talk about like they have a life expense, the fire alarms and those things, and talk about, some of those, I don't know, I'm just throwing out an idea. I'm just thinking of ways we could educate
We
the,
have that, we have, Sunshine and social media that would probably be good if we put some of that together. I know at the start of the year, we had to mention fire hydrants and don't bury them. So,
I don't know, I'm just thinking, but if someone comes up with a solution, I agree with me, I think it's hard because, you do need that and you don't want to not show up at the same token, you get the same call every week, you're kind of like, okay, it's the same people, we probably don't need to go, and that's not what, because then when it does happen.
what happens? We don't show up.
All right, well, thank you.
As you mentioned, our numbers are down from the previous year. As far as percent of fires, the alarms were the highest, but as far as man hours, our wildland is where the most man hours are spent, which makes sense.
Right.
Luckily, with the past few years being as dry as they are, we haven't really had as many wildland calls as we were expecting, which has been a good thing. And I'm hoping this year that it'll be even more with all the moisture we receive. Just kind of upgrade it. Warms up and dries out.
that provides a lot of fuel though.
Have you had a chance to use the new fire tender? Is that working pretty well?
It's all like that. Question is gonna come up. We waited, what, a year and a half, 2 years?
I know.
To get a truck here. Truck got here over fall break. And we're still waiting on gold lettering to letter it so we can get it in service. She's had it for 5 months.
Oh,
And
geez.
she has all of the lettering except gold and she can't get it. It's just frustrating.
That's too bad.
She offered a different color, so we're trucking.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not in service yet, we're still waiting, that's the stats on that. Our response time is still at an average of 11 minutes. And each firefighter put in an average of 77 hours on calls. Obviously, some are gonna have less time than that, and others are gonna have a lot more time, but that was the average, is 77 hours per firefighter. We were down 14% on our calls, from the previous year. The breakdown, we had more calls in the city than anywhere else, but as far as man hours, we put more in Duchesne County than we did in anywhere else. So when we're looking at contracts, that's why we break it down that way, because we don't want to just throw that out and say, well, you didn't go into county that much, so we're not gonna pay you. Well, you're right, but hours, we're spending out versus here, so
That's smart.
that's why we put that in for that. Each truck went out, we have that next page broke down, so that you kind of can see how often each truck's rolling. And we try to, brush trucks, which are both getting 20-year-old age, depends where they're sitting in the bays, how much use they get. So 206 is almost double what 205 was, and it's always sitting in the middle, so if we only run one truck, then it's not the one that goes. So it just depends how they're sitting in the bay. Our busiest day of the week last year was Saturday, where our previous year, it was, sorry, I have to do one more. Previous year was on Thursday.
Hmm.
Why? It's hard to say. We just keep tracking so that we know which days we're rolling the most. The other one, our times, we've always had just one time slot. It's always been 5 p.m. in the afternoon. It's been real busy. But this year we had 10 a.m., 6 p.m., and 8 p.m. that all had the same calls.
Hmm.
So the 6 and 8 p.m. I can attribute to farmers were burning their fields, the wind came up. The 10 a.m. it's hard to say why that one's a little higher.
Are the
Most of
false,
the time sorry.
I'm sorry, are the false alarms included in this?
Yeah,
Everything, okay.
Yeah, like what time we went.
Right.
Yeah. And the last thing that we have in there is our firefighter members. They have to attend 75% of their training, 40% of the calls to be in good standing with the fire department. And that's just there, so the council can look it over and see where everybody's at. We did introduce you to 4 new firefighters, but we had full staff for 3 weeks, and then we're full on firefighters.
So you're recruiting again.
We'll wait to replace him. I have 4 that tested for firefighter 1 certification 3 weeks ago. 2 of them passed, 2 of them are gonna have to retest. And these 4 that just started they're starting with wildland class tonight. They'll do that for a month. For 3 months, the fire department, the officers will be doing their fire training, getting their certificates.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. You answered my question.
Thanks for all you guys do.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Nobody knows what it's like to jump up out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning from dead sleep to going and blowing.
Yeah.
Wonder where everything's at.
Yeah. Except for those that have done it. So we appreciate all you guys do.
Thank you.
Next we have the public hearing for the Buxton rezone. Dean and Josh, why don't you go ahead and I think we have Mr. Buxton here as well, but why don't you give us a brief overview of what we're looking at?
I'll give you a brief and then I'll let Greg know. Greg Buxton, he lives up on 200 north, top of the hill. He's currently living in his father's home. That piece of property has always had animal rights and his grandfather. He wants to be able to keep these in a long term, so he's asking to rezone to an RR1, which permits animals, and that way if it grows and people have complaints, he has those animal rights. And with that, he's gonna come by, there's 3 parcels on that same piece of property. So the second part of this, not part of the hearing, but he wants to combine those parcels into one, so it's easier to manage.
Where's the closest RR1 to that?
Well, with the over the hill, now if you remember, Gales Acres, They were RO1, then they went to a 110, and they wanted back to their animal rights.
Yeah.
And so we rezoned them. Premise is, with Greg doing this, there's one or two other people that have animals with larger parcels. I can't say what will happen, but we think in time that they may want to come in and rezone too.
I've had a couple individuals contact me that are fairly close to where Greg's at, that would want the same. However, I don't know if they have, because you have to have at least an acre, and I don't know if they have the property to do that. The only concern or question that I would have, this would be a spot zone, I'm guessing.
It's a spot zone, like I say, it's right on the fringe.
Yeah,
If you go, I think 2 or 3 parcels, city ends, actually it depends on which side of the road you're on. It ends down at the bottom there, of course, but staff felt like this was in line, he's actually got 2+ acres.
2.5.
2.5 acres, and that, like I say, there's a couple other people up there that's got some property that have the animal rights and they use it all the time also.
just right across the street, there was an individual that had horses. I don't know if they do anymore. But
They actually split the property, so with that, they lost their animal rights.
so the only concern that I would have is if others came and we spot zone this, that would open up the precedence that we would have to consider spot zoning in different areas of the city. However, one question comes to mind, is there not a way that we can leave the zoning as it is and do a conditional use?
Well, conditional use, to be honest, if we go to conditional uses, I don't think that anything to animals is in our conditional use list, because you can only grant what's in that list.
Right.
And that, for people, one reason we're granting this is because he has animal rights. If somebody wants to spot zone and has never had animals on their property, I would say we would deny that
Sure.
application coming in, where he has existing rights and the amount of property. That's why staff was in line with this.
Okay. Where did Grant go?
Are you going in, Ryan?
Cursor is right on his parcel.
Okay,
Grant, did you hear some of the conversation? Okay, so we have a proposal to rezone an area to an R1, but it's within, what is that current zone right
It's
there?
R110.
R110. And so the question that I had is, if we do this, we've kind of tried to shy away from spot zoning things, because if somebody else in that area wanted to do the same thing, we'd have a hard time not. It would put us in a difficult situation. I did mention a conditional use, but maybe that doesn't fit within our ordinances. What are your thoughts?
Conditional use probably wouldn't fit. Which part is supposed to be annexed?
doesn't Leon though still have animal rights on his lot when he split it? Didn't he keep his on the,
Leon? No, when he did not, when he split it, he lost.
oh, so because I didn't know that.
Right, he's right up here in Dr. Buxton's property, right on top of
Right.
200 North. And they've always had animals there, and actually, there's other properties here that have had animals existing too. It's like say, the edge of the zone is here, but we think with this happening, there's 1 or 2 property owners that have always had, this person's always had goats, this person's always had cows, that they could possibly, but Greg has 2.5 acres right here. And they've always had animal rights, and he wants to maintain that if possible.
And
Which he can, but with the R1 zoning, people can't complain about that.
Yeah, when you say which he can, I assume you're saying because he's grandfathered in.
He's
They've always been.
And that's what I was saying for spot zoning. The way I see it, if somebody wanted to spot zone, they've got to prove that they have existing animal rights, and there's very few people that can do that.
I would say that it still would be considered spot zoning in regards to whether they have the animal rights and right there or not. As long as they've always had the animals, it's kind of a moot point in my opinion now, because they're grandfathered in and they're allowed to keep it for as long as they have animals there. It could change if the property was sold or if they went for a period of time without any animals there.
And that was the question I was going to bring up. If the property is sold, does those do those grandfathered rights follow?
Probably not.
Or do they end with the current owner?
Probably in with the current owner, because it would only be the owner who was there when the zone was changed, the zone didn't apply.
Now, would it apply to the family though?
Is it held in a trust for the individuals?
It was in trust.
Let's see.
So as long as the trust was in existence, the trust is its own entity, and so the trust would, whoever lived there, or whoever the beneficiaries of the trust were, would be able to continue to have.
I'm the beneficiary of the trust.
Yeah, so if the property was ever transferred out of the trust though, that creates an interesting scenario, because even if the same owner was living there, but it was transferred from the trust to the individual, then theoretically it would not be grandfathered in anymore.
So when this came up with another individual in that, quote, in that area, I was thinking if there was if we could write something into our policy, if it met a certain criteria that they could have more animals and things like that in a different zone, I think that would be a cleaner way to do it than the spot zone, and it would still allow you to have your property, your rights that you're wanting, and even long-term, it would transcend, being sold and everything else. It would do almost the same thing, but it would basically be a contract or something that would be entered into in a conditional use that says as long as these criteria are met, you can always keep your have your animals there, and it would be similar to an R1. There's at least an acre, of property and X, Y, and Z. It wouldn't have to be too cumbersome, but I still feel like that would probably be
I would get away from the spot zoning issues and probably would accomplish everything that he would want.
Is that something that you would be interested in, Greg? If we could come up with
I'm
something
not
like
sure I
that?
understand 100%.
So what it would be is it would be basically when a property is granted a conditional use, that conditional use can stay as long as those conditional uses are met. And those conditional uses would be the size of the property. It would be similar to whatever you find in an R1, even though you're in an R110. And so as long as you don't sell, 2 acres of the property, you only still have half an acre left, and those types of things, you would still be able to utilize that property and have animals there indefinitely until at some point those conditions were not met. So it basically,
Well, my understanding that is the case. As soon as I go subdivided, I would lose those rights.
yeah,
And so that's already in place.
yeah, and it worked. So it worked very similarly to what a complete zone change would be, other than it would just be conditions needing to be met, and if you don't, then it just defaults back to the R110. And as long as those conditions are met, though, you can utilize that property and enjoy it for what you want indefinitely, correct? And then it doesn't change with the sale of the property or anything else. It's long-term.
So who would generate this letter?
So we could run it through planning and zoning. I mean, obviously, are you wanting to do anything fairly quickly with this property as far as subdividing and?
No subdividing.
But just getting the,
He doesn't want to subdivide. Actually, he has 3 parcels on the property and he wants to merge them all into just one parcel.
okay, and that wouldn't,
So they're all under one.
yeah, this decision wouldn't affect any of that, so you could continue that process. And in the meantime, we could work on, because I think this would be a solution, and I'm glad it's kind of coming up again, because there are a couple others in that area that would like the same privileges, but they fall into the same category. And I think it would be easier to do a conditional use and have the criteria set and handle it that way. That would give other people in that area the same privilege without trying to spot zone and do those types of things.
I see what you're saying, but really the way this works, it's already in place. As soon as I've got 2.5 acres, and as soon as I subdivide it, less than an acre, then I lose it. So it's already conditioned.
Yeah, and all this does is basically gives you, right now it's grandfathered in, and so you lose that right if you were to sell or if it were to change hands. If we do this, what we're talking about, then the next property owner and the next property owner would have the same privileges or rights there. So it would, yeah.
So that wasn't what Grant said.
No.
Grant said if it came out of the trust, I thought,
Well, that's if you're working just off it being grandfathered in. If changes are made, so that either it's permitted, used in the zone, or you make it a conditional use, then it wouldn't matter who the property owner is.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. So right now, how it is you're right, it would work the same way, Greg, other than if you did sell the property currently, you would lose, the next owner would lose the rights to have that there. If we did the conditional use and you sold, those rights would be maintained with the next property owner.
and,
So it works similarly.
and it would actually be a document that he has in hand that guarantees him the animal,
Absolutely.
which is similar to this.
Other than we adhere to our ordinances and zoning practices. And we're not doing spot zones, but we are. And again, this is not an isolated problem. This is something that I've seen from a couple others that I think would benefit. And I say basically if it fits within the RR1, it can be conditional use that even if it's an R110, it can be utilized as RR1 if it meets the criteria of RR1 zoning. It could be very simple. Would you be okay with that if we start working on that?
Sounds a little, just doesn't seem to have the strength that the other one has.
Grant, would it have the same strength?
I don't think so. Same strength. And if anything, I would say a little bit more because you wouldn't have any arguments that it was lost.
And the other thing is you wouldn't have a council in 3 years coming and saying, we don't like that spot zone, we're gonna change it back to R110. This is the conditional use that would transcend all of that, basically.
I guess, I just, my concern is, we've always had animals there. I want to build some additional fences and some outbuildings and things. I know that the complete zone change would make it look easier for me to build some out sheds and things than leaving it in the zoning that it is now. And the other part is I just want to know that if I'm putting money in fences and outbuildings and things like that, sell the property, those things are in improving the value of the property rather than just being.
Yeah, I see that. Any concerns with that, the outbuildings and things?
Dean would probably be able to answer the question better for the outbuildings. The concern about the value of the property being increased because of the improvements with the conditional use or just making it permitted use, either of those ways, that would carry on. So that would accomplish that. But is there anything in the current zone that would prevent the outbuildings from being built?
Well, in R110, you cover 35% of the property with buildings in that. Now, I don't think he's anywhere close, and I don't think he wants to cover that much of the area, but it's more limited in the area. And depending on the type of buildings he wants to put up, it could be a little bit limited, where the R1 is a little bit more open.
Because you might want to work with Dean a little bit more, talk about more specifically what types of outbuildings you're talking about. But I think accommodations could be made in the same way that JR is describing with either conditional use or making it permitted use. We can always change what the restrictions are within the zones if that's something that the council wants to do.
What would those conditions be? Right now, I have to have an
Right, and that's what it would be. So it wouldn't be any more cumbersome basically than what the RR1 would allow. So if it fit within an RR1 zoning and you met, you had the right, at least an acre and,
But that's
that's the thing is it's not really much more than that. I mean, that's not a whole.
Why are we doing it if it's not changing anything? It's the conditional use that I have 1 acre. That's the requirement to rezone it in the first place.
Yeah, but what you're missing is if you look at that map again, it's all yellow. And it's designated that way for a reason. Now, we want to accommodate you and make sure that you can have your animals there, obviously. So we're trying to make it so that we can stay consistent with what we've done in the past, but also allow you to utilize your property how you would like. And so basically the only thing is in our ordinances right now, there's not a conditional use that says if it's 1 acre and fits the criteria of an RR1, that it can be utilized as an RR1. Very simple fix and something that we can do. And again, I think it solves, for me, and this is my fear, because we've had 2 or 3 other people, or at least I have, approach me on the same issue, and we kind of told them the same thing. So
Acre.
I think they do, and I can probably show you where, but they're not very far from me, and they do have. They probably have about an acre is all.
Are they contiguous with my property?
No, and that would be the unfortunate thing. So if they came back and they wanted to do that, then we've got another one popping up. It's just an acre here in the center of this, where conditional use allows for those, but we're not having to change our zoning. So it can be, actually what it does is it allows it to be used a dual use. So if you meet the conditions, it can be used as an RR1. And if you wanted to subdivide and do whatever you wanted to do, and then you're already in R110. You can do that, and you fit within certain things that you can already do there. So
Sounds to me like conditional use would actually, or permitted use would give more value because it could be passed on to the next owners, and that could be as part of the selling point versus the grandfather, it's done once you sell it, so.
and I think if somebody were to buy it and say, well, we'd want to subdivide, then they would have to come back to the city, and then they'd have to rezone it to an R110 or whatever the zoning is to go ahead and go through that process again. So this would allow you to do what you wanted to do as long as you wanted, and for the next property owner to do that as well.
Well, I guess it's all right so long as I have. You know, I mean, you start putting conditions on it, how many more conditions are there gonna be when there already in conditions?
I don't see that there would be any.
That's what I'm afraid of. The can of worms.
Yeah.
Have a whole bunch of like to me, it wouldn't be
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is as long as you're adhering to the conditions already set in the R1, I don't think it would be an issue.
Starting that process.
The same way that you've started this one, unfortunately, we would have to go back to planning and zoning and have them, we would have grant draft a conditional use for that would fit any other property that might come forward to the council that was similar. And it could be as basic as we need to make sure that it meets the criteria. It would go before planning and zoning, they would vote on it. Most likely it would pass, it would come before the council, we would vote on it and have a public hearing, and most likely it would pass.
I guess you guarantee me that there's not gonna be a whole stack of conditions. But you open it up to this, and I'll take everybody starts throwing issues.
Well, my personal opinion, I can give you my personal opinion, I don't see that happening, and frankly, I've driven past your dad's place my whole life, and I love it, that there's horses there and that it is what it is, so I want to see it stay. And I want to help you the best I can, but I just want to make sure that when we help you do that, that we're not putting ourselves in a very tough spot when it comes to other people coming to the city and saying, hey, we want to do that. And then all of a sudden we have all of these come up. But if we do have that in place, that's a conditional use or a permitted use, I like that verbiage better. Then if somebody comes up to us, then we can actually allow that to happen without having to go through a whole zone change. And it can stay as the same zone that it is, so it can be used as either or, as long as, I won't say criteria.
I to be honest, I love what I'm hearing. It gives me the benefit of both, but
Yeah,
it's the can of worms that as soon as that lid's off, what's all gonna be thrown in there?
sure.
Worries me.
I understand, and I'll tell you, we won't throw any worms in that we don't have to.
So with that hearing, I like that too, when Brad wraps this up, if we can put it under as a permitted use, not conditional, because we gotta go to the conditional use area of planning and zoning to grant, and there's nothing there to bring it up, so permitted use is the main way to
Yeah,
do it.
I agree. And permitted use is there.
Yeah,
And so I'll let Drew know, Brent's gonna draft a letter, and then we'll take it to zoning once that's finished, right?
do you, are you okay with doing that, Grant? Okay. And then we can have a public hearing if we need, but if we're going that direction, I don't see a real need to do a public hearing.
Well, it's fine, me too. I've got drill up my fence and stuff that I want to start building. It's just kind of scary to start throwing that kind of money into it, not knowing if I'm going to get it approved.
Sure, and that reminds me, so if he starts putting up pipe,
But there's nothing, as long as he keeps his own property and keeps it below 6 feet, he can build away.
and what about that? Because it's not just the fences you're talking about buildings as well, right?
Well, I don't have any plans for building, right?
Oh, okay, so it is just, yeah, and I don't think that would be any issue even in your current zoning, but I can commit to you that we will work diligently on it and we can have this. When is the next planning and zoning meeting?
First Wednesday coming up.
Okay, so we have
I
time.
should just look at what it is.
So within 6 weeks, we can probably have you a pretty good answer.
So we should look at Nathan.
Well, no, I'm thinking the middle of April. First meeting in April.
Oh, for council?
Yeah.
Zoning would be the 5th.
Oh, 5th of April, and then our meeting would be, so it would still be the
Regular one
middle of April.
would be the 18th.
So it'd be that by the 18th of April, we'd have pretty good.
But we need it by zoning so we can present to zoning for their approval.
Correct. We'll work on it. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate you.
Okay. Now, he wants is a lot line adjustment.
Yes.
We just want to combine all three of his parcels into one single. Do you still want to do that?
Oh, he's,
He stepped
Let
down.
me catch.
okay. That's good.
Thank you, guys.
I mean, this is all changing everything.
Yeah. Do you want to?
It's up to you if you want to
If I
combine them
can,
all. If you want to leave them as three, you've got the acreage.
that's
just
no
what you're
pressure. I
here.
got a couple $1,000 survey here.
You can still combine them.
Yeah, $2,000 later. But, you know, that's, you know, I'm just getting a little frustrated. It's, you know, I've invested a lot of money and time.
Sure.
Just getting a little.
Well, no, not really, and not to be rude, Greg, at all, but in all honesty, if somebody were to come for us, on the answer historically has been no.
Right.
So not to be rude at all, we're really trying to work with you and trying to get you to where you need to be in the best possible way. And so historically, it has been pretty abrupt. No, we don't do that. And so I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can help you and still adhere to the precedents that we've set. So, and I get it.
So if you don't want to combine them tonight, you can always.
I don't see any reason why to combine them. If I get all the rights and benefits of everything that
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna do, we can cancel that too. It's just,
Well, you can always come back in. If you want to.
okay, it's just $2,000 for a survey flat and I need to put together for, so that I can eliminate those lot lines. And
Well, we apologize for that, but we will get you ultimately where you need to be, I believe. So,
same.
thank you. All right, Kirby, you're up, my friend.
All right. All right, mine won't be nearly now, so. I just would like you guys to take a look at what's there on the screen. We, had a bid opening for our 2023 crack seal project, approximately about 2 weeks ago, Jones in the Mill. And those are the results. I was happy to see we had 6 contractors that bid. And We obviously really like Superior Asphalt, not because they're the lowest bidder, but they have done work for us in the past and done a good job. And, so what I'm looking for tonight is just, staff and Jones at the Mill would recommend that, this project be awarded to Superior Asphalt. We're well under budget, so I'll be adding some streets to it. If you go to the next one, right? That's what will get accomplished with this right now. That's a lot of streets being pressed.
It's pretty impressive.
So, and we'll be able to add a few more. I'm looking at, the parking lots here, the city building, front back. Crack seal, they seal, everything, make it look really nice, because we are so under budget and add a few streets, so. Just need that, recommendation for you guys to approve that, to award that to Superior Asphalt, and
Kirby, we talked earlier, you said
Yes.
you've had Superior do work for us in the
Yeah.
past, and they've done good work,
Yeah.
and Jones and the Mill is supportive, and
Jeff Gray.
so.
So I think it's, it came in really good, and I'm glad to see we got 6 different companies put in.
You make the note on the record that Dustin.
Thanks for the tech.
Any questions, any other questions for Kirby? He was explaining that we had,
Crack seal project. So we had a bid opening about a week and a half ago, Justin, and if you go back one line, sorry about that. Those were the results. We had 6 bids come in, which was impressive and good to see. And the low bid was Superior Asphalt, and they have done work for the city before, and Jones and DeMille has worked along with them also. And so we just give the recommendation that you guys would award Superior Asphalt with the contract.
I figured if you were gonna vote on it, that you might wanna know what we're.
What you're voting on.
But then you can see the streets there, Dustin, on the next slide, what will get accomplished with that many streets. Which is a lot.
All right.
Any other questions, you guys?
I move we approve, the contract with Superior then.
We have a motion,
Second.
second by Councilman Rowley, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is unanimous.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kirby. Thanks, Kirby. All right, Ryan, we have the Dry Gulch Water Lease Award.
You know, quiet over there.
I know, I'm just,
Okay, real quick, Roosevelt City, as you all know, owns some water shares to Dry Gulch, which is roughly about 375. And this year came up to bid on them. We do them every 6 years. And so we had them bid, we got bids back. This is the results. Recommendation from city staff would to accept all competitive offers that we received. If you look up there, however, there is one that's not competitive, that is lower than the rest. All the others came in pretty close to being the same. One was a little high, but anyway, that would be our recommendation with that. With the one that's low, it's roughly 59.5 shares, with water issues going on right now and drought, and I know it doesn't seem like that with all the snow that's going on, but it's gonna take a few weeks to get out of it. The city does have other places that we can put that water. So,
Ryan, I just had a question. I'm not familiar with the terminology D, E, and K2. What's the difference in the water?
it's different class of the shares, so location and diverted from different areas too.
Okay.
So the class E, where the one is, would be, correct me if I'm wrong, it's around the sewer farm and
Class
Park
E.
Hill. Is that where?
It,
Class E?
it starts, at the North Cove Road, so everything below that point, basically. where
Yeah,
our
the
major parking
diversion is
lot
right
is,
there.
and
So it's not, I didn't know what that was. I didn't remember seeing that before. I probably just missed it, but anyway, I was just curious.
Yeah, the version for Class C is right there, just west of the major park. So, any other questions?
I move we would follow staff's recommendation and accept the competitive bid shares.
And reject the non-competitive.
I was gonna ask you, I mean, $1 a share, that's, why would they bid $1 a share?
I don't know, that's just what we have.
But you said we can use that water if we don't
Yeah,
pay for that one.
yeah, we checked into it, and we can actually, it's pretty convenient, but we can probably use it. I got with Drew, and he feels pretty confident we can use it in the nature park for the pond.
So I would rather us utilize that than just give away that many shares of free water.
Because currently, right now, for that pond, we would be using culinary in the winter, but also some culinary in the summer with secondary. So this would actually, help the burden on that, so.
I think even if we kept, if we kept just a couple shares, it's still more valuable to us than taking $1 per share. $59 is not.
Yeah.
Well, like a lot, so
Yeah.
I would agree. So Don, is that your recommendation?
Yeah, that was my that we accept the competitive bids based on staff recommendation. That was my motion.
And what do you need to say, and reject the non-competitive?
And reject the non-competitive.
That way it's-
I'll add that to my motion then, to reject the non-competitive.
In a second, we have Councilman Powell, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is unanimous. Grant, with the AYSO agreement. And we have Jenny here tonight also, I think representing AYSO, correct?
No,
Oh, no.
the Roosevelt soccer.
What about?
We have a proposed agreement in which AYSO would be transferring ownership of their soccer goals to the city. In exchange, the city would be accepting liability for those, and there are provisions for the maintenance. The current provision is that AYSO would forward $3 from the registration fees to the city. The city would use that to maintain the goals. The city would also agree to collect that same fee from any other organization that was going to use the goals, so it was kind of spread out between everybody that was using them.
Is that on top of the $15 already charged?
Yeah, that would be on.
One of the things that came up, and Jenny, you can go ahead and chime in if you'd like, but it was brought to my attention is AYSO is going away. So they won't be represented in our area any longer. And so this is an agreement between us and AYSO, correct? And so I think one of the things that you mentioned is that the Roosevelt Soccer Club, is it the soccer
Roosevelt Soccer Club, yes.
club, would be the only ones now playing and utilizing those goals? And they felt that it would be in their best, so
We had talked about it both ways, and so I called and we had a meeting and to decide exactly what we wanted to do. We agreed that it would be more beneficial for us to pay the extra $3 for you guys to maintain them. So yeah, we're like, $3, that's a killing. We'll gladly let you guys maintain that, and we'll gladly pay the $3 per kid.
So the question I would have for you, Grant, is where this is the contract with AYSO and not necessarily the Roosevelt. We could probably take the verbiage out of that one as far as charging more because it's a mute point at this point. Because it's AYSO, it's just an agreement that we are going to take possession of the goals, correct?
And accept liability.
And accept liability. And then how it's paid for, how we charge for that, then we have another contract with Roosevelt Soccer Club for the maintenance and what we would charge for that.
We can do that to remove section 6 altogether.
Right. Unless they require it on their end, but
Yeah, and all that we would be agreeing, I mean, as soon as, when you say AYSO is going away, are they like expanding, or are they just not gonna operate
So-
here anymore?
Most of the board from AYSO has jumped over to the Roosevelt Soccer Club. There's like 2 members left. The regional commissioner, she's says she's done. So unless AYSO comes from California and holds, some election for a whole new board, there's no longer gonna be a board here.
So I see what you're saying, though. If there were a board in the future, by some miracle, having that language in there we could still
Might
do
just
the
cover.
other contract with them with the same language, but.
Yeah, I don't really see an advantage to be gained by eliminating it. My recommendation would be that we leave it, but then still have another agreement. And that's kind of what was contemplated when we drafted this, even though when I wrote it, I was assuming that AYSO would continue to function here. But it's still saying that we would go to any third party and collect the same fee. So that's kind of an issue outside of this agreement with AYSO.
Josh, I don't see anybody representing our recreation, but I guess the only other question that I would have is this $3 now. And then if the council has any questions or comments on that as well. And not because.
How many kids usually do soccer?
So last year we had, for the recreational infall, we had 600 kids.
So it'd be $1,800, right? Approximately. So what is the cost or maintenance?
I think we got together with Brent and we put that together and we felt that's where we came up with the $3 is we felt that.
I believe you said that should cover it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Grant?
The other thing I can think that you might want me to point out is that there is a provision in here where they can be relocated. It's number 4. We just have to make sure that if they're moved to another location, that there's a field to go with them, so they can still be used.
I'd say let's go ahead and approve this. I'll move we approve.
I'll say.
We have a motion and a second by Councilman Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. And then we'll go ahead and get another agreement for the Roosevelt Soccer Club, and it mainly just be for the maintenance portion of this one.
Sunshine, I'm gonna forward you an updated, there are no substantive changes, but I saw just a couple of typos, so I'm gonna forward you an updated draft.
Okay. Thanks, Grant. All right, our next item, do you want to do this, Ryan, or do you want me to? I got up in this mess. So this is a contract for our fireworks and entertainment for 4th of July. So I reached out, we kind of stepped in a little bit to a certain individual that does a lot of shows, a lot of entertaining and things like that. They also did fireworks. And so we tried to put together a package deal. We're not 100% finalized with that yet. Ryan, for whatever reason, can't get a hold of the guy and finish the deal, even though I started it. Just kidding. He's been a little hard to get to, but we did want to bring it before the council because the price is not going to change. What we're negotiating is how many shots they'll provide for the 4th of July. This is what they said that they would provide. So we're not necessarily approving the shots for the 4th of July. We're approving the amount that we would spend for the 4th of July, so that as we negotiate those and they fall in line, then we can go ahead and sign the contract as long as it doesn't exceed that amount.
Was that what we've usually paid about? I mean, I know inflation has gone up a little bit, but is that comparable? Or is it a little?
This amounts for the entertainment as well.
Yeah, so this is for the entertainment. What this pays for is the sound, pays for the headliner, and pays for the fireworks.
Okay.
And so it's fairly, I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not.
No, that sounds a lot better than just, because if it was just fireworks, I'm thinking, but that makes sense now, so.
Yeah, it comes out to about, how much have you spent in the past on fireworks on the 4th of July?
For both shows, I'm roughly around 24.
So 12,000 for fireworks, and then we figured 7,500 for the headliner, and, I think it's 1,800 for the sound guy, and so you put that together and it's right there.
Okay.
So.
And you're pretty, have we worked with this group before, or?
Nervous. But they put on a lot of shows around the stage.
JR said it was his buddy.
Is he getting 10% back as a kickback?
I won't try the fireworks show.
Are you pretty comfortable though, JR, with, I know it's new, but.
Yeah, I was more comfortable in the beginning. I'm only a little uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with the amount and that we'll get a good show. He's done shows in Price, he's shown in people that are close, so I have references to go off of. This is not his first go around. Obviously, he does this all over the state. They own Cherry Peak ski resort, so they put on shows there all the time. He does travel a lot and he's out of the country a lot. And so that's what makes it difficult. But I'm crossing my fingers. There's only one person to blame if this goes down in flames, and that's me. I have nothing to do with it. He's just trying to help me out. So,
Then I would move we approve just to see if the mayor goes in flames. If he's out there lighting firecrackers and throwing them out the
I told him earlier, I'm going to have a hard time singing, but I'll do it if I have to. Nobody's going to enjoy it.
I still move we approve though.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's unanimous. So if you can ever get a hold of them, then we can get an actual contract, we know.
Did you want the amount in that motion, or is this what it is?
Maybe if you would just mention.
Yeah, do you want me to put not to exceed 21
I
or
would say not to.
not to exceed 21,000? I'll add that to the motion. Amend motion, you want to second it again?
Who seconded that?
Dustin White seconded my amended.
And everybody's in agreement?
Yeah.
In favor? Okay. Excellent. Next item, we have Altamont Energy. This is one we need to be in really quickly.
Mayor. So we have a request from Altamont Energy to secure a temporary easement and right of way for some property the city owns right near where the gun range is going in. This will be a 6-month temporary lease that offering the city $3,600. They'll be installing 360 rods. One thing we did have them add is a road access clause to this to where if there's any problems of us, if we do start to build the gun range when we start to build the gun range, then it will not interfere with the work that we're doing there. They'll even bury the line if they have to get it out of our way. Where they're proposing to put the line would not be in our way anyway. We've met with Grant, met with Ryan, the mayor. We don't feel it would impede us in any way. They're great to work with. And so they're requesting this temporary easement and right away. Are there any questions?
I move we approve then. It doesn't sound like a good deal.
Yeah.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Power. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion is unanimous. Jones and the Mill contract approval. Jeff? We're excited about these two.
Yeah. Which one's first?
Whatever you want.
Constitution Park Sports Complex. So we've been, many of you know that we've kind of helped preliminary to kind of put together the initial layout of what the city was thinking for the sports complex. pickleball, all that kind of stuff. And obviously the funding is kind of in works too. So we were asked by staff to provide a proposal to do the final design stages and provide everything so that the city then could then go kind of procure different contractors to do work. Obviously, there's a lot involved in this and working through exactly what the city wants to see, trying to reduce costs on a few things, whatever. But so that's proposals there. It was in your packet. I won't bore you by reading the detailed scope unless you've got questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
Just the total, I'm sure, is what they want to
And
know.
so it's 19,200 proposed as lump sum, and that goes along with the scope of the design. Right?
Says
It doesn't match yours.
Did I read the wrong one?
It's on the screen.
Is that the updated one?
Yeah, because there was some, there was a little bit added for the change
Yeah,
in
but
pickleball.
moving the
Right?
pickleball courts to Centennial.
What date do you have on that one, right?
This is January 26th.
What do you have?
See what I sent it in. I can find the email real quick.
Oh, I thought you had your,
Well, mine, I didn't change the date on it.
okay.
Should have. Doesn't matter if I find it.
This would be the sports complex, this would be the baseball. Oh, moving it to, Central Park.
He did, I was advised.
Oh, yeah. I probably heard Centennial,
The-
because I knew where.
Updated one was sent out.
15th of February. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we can, that's an easy, just in the motion, and then we would amend the proposal to 19,200.
17,200, yep. And like I said, the only change there was in the kind of preliminary meeting we had, and based on feedback from the public, is that there was a desire to have pickleball courts in the Central Park. That seems like what everybody's calling it, but
No,
it's
just
just
because we have
the
to.
park down by the library.
Old park.
Because that's what the name is in front of me right now.
Yeah.
We get something different for the skating rink.
That's the question. So, there's a couple of people that actually had mentioned they would be interested in helping us out. Delsco, Grady Arnold at Delsco, I mentioned they might have some drill pipe. We might be able to put a cover on it. Concerns moving it to Mill Park is the leaves and things like that blowing on the ice. And so we're trying to get a cover on it. And then we did have UBMC with a soft commitment of 20,000 towards that as well. So we're hoping with a few of those commitments, we might be able to cover that, and it would still, there was one other thing, and I wish Dustin was here, but because of the room that we have and where we're going to put it at the old park, it was a little narrower than what we would have liked, and so we have to look at that as well. So there's still a couple of things in flux, but
Something that's behind that.
But as far as where the pickleballers would like it and it's more centrally located, that's the better site, just because we do have the basketball courts that are also painted to play pickleball, and if they have tournaments and things, then they can hold those in one area instead of having to split. They get enough teams, so. Any other questions for Jeff?
No. Do we need to approve these separate, or can we do them as one?
Probably separate. I would probably say separate.
Okay. I move we approve the Jones and DeMille contract for the Constitution Sports Complex for 19,200, amended from the earlier bid.
Okay, we have a motion. And a second by Councilman Flower, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion unanimous.
So the next one is for our proposal, kind of same scenario, we helped preliminarily, and it donated $10,000 worth of time to the preliminary design of the Rough Rider Sports Complex. Is that the official name? Shooting complex, sorry, Rough Rider Shooting Complex. So this would be, again, to kind of just finalize design there and provide documents that then the city can go out and, obviously, there's planned to be a bunch of donated work and equipment and everything too, but basically give you the full package that you need there. Again, the scope of work is all listed there. This one, we kind of have a breakdown to show like how much we've spent above that $10,000 right now. So the total contract would be for $29,000. Catch up on some of that preliminary work, and then the remainder would be for pre-construction design engineering services, and then so the rest of it's all hourly, and so it's flexible there too, just kind of depending what it takes. There is time in there for construction engineering and material testing. We're thinking mostly where Ballard has interest in the road, making sure we have density tests and stuff like that there. And then survey of lining that all out so that people can go in and build it.
Any questions? And I do have one question. Ballard City, you did get, I didn't see that come from Mayor Abercrombie, but do you have a copy of the signed MOU?
Trying to remember. I had talked to him and he had signed it. I'm actually gonna try and run over there, so I will ask him.
Will you see if they can get us a
Get
signed?
signed. Yeah, I'll just see if we can get one sent over to you.
We just want to make sure we have that.
I know Kaylin's been out of the office with some health
Oh,
issues, so
okay.
it could be that the ball just got dropped a little bit.
If you'll check with them and make sure, because as soon as we have that in hand and this is approved, there's nothing stopping us other than snow.
Yep.
On this one. And a lot of it. So any other questions for Jeff?
No, I move, oh, second.
Yeah, we got Councilman Allen.
I'll second it. Way to go.
No, we need time to get rid of Booze's name.
You just automatically, everything you put my name on, right?
Here.
It's faster.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is unanimous. Thanks, Jeff. Looking to get, or to get started on that. Ryan, back up to you. Now we're just cruising through.
We're trying.
We'll tag team on this one. So this is the Page Bench water line project that we're trying to do. So we've had some changes in plans. So what we did is we had Jones and McNeil, they gave us 4 options that we can run this water line and get it to that bench to be able to bypass our tank that we have. So you want me to go through all 4 or just tip one? Have you guys read through this?
I did.
You want a brief synopsis? Just pull up your map real quick. And I'll point my finger if that's appropriate.
Well, can we mention also why the pronoun that, why we're even talking about this?
If you want.
Well, because it did come before council that we were planning on a swap
Right.
of infrastructure. And that was declined by our neighbors. And so now we're looking at a way to solve the conflicts that we might have in the future with them. With keeping those systems separate so we don't have any major issues. So these are the options.
Scroll down.
Should be there, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
I can explain it this way if you don't like to. Are you guys familiar with the layout up there? If much.
Yeah.
So the Page Bench existing tank is approximately right here. You come off of North Cove Road and go up the lane up there and I think there's a few people who live up there, but that tank's been there a while. It has IPS points. That's kind of why we went after the funding in the first place. There's points on the water system, which nobody wants. So this is the project that the city was successful in getting essentially 100% grant or 96% grant or something like that to replace this 18-inch ductile line that's deteriorating here, come down, bypass the tank and take it out of service so that those points go off of the system, tie back in. And then initially the thought was to tie on to Cedar View Montwell Special Service District has a line that they call the Charmel Acres project that comes all the way down this road off of kind of just above the Elk Farm PRV and comes down all the way to the city boundary essentially. So that was the original plan. And once that faded, we've come up with these options, and we're open to other options too. These are just kind of the ones that were discussed with staff and our kind of modeling. The first option would be to, what is this road, Ryan? 1500 north
Yeah, roughly at 3,000 west.
and 3000 west. That would be like Kelsey Corner of Bluebell Road, just barely north of that. There's an existing water line that goes out 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet, but it's only 6-inch. We'd come back all the way to 3,000 west, tie onto that, bring a 12-inch line kind of cross country all the way across. And again, this isn't necessarily the perfect alignment that we should follow, but this is the concept. We'd come up here and we would transition everybody on the bench that already has water services over to this new line so that they've got higher pressures. Right now they have 30 PSI, 20
At best.
something PSI normally. This would allow them to have, in that 55 PSI range, which is much better service. It would come down and tie into the line that comes from the Page Bench tank right now. And a bunch of PRV stations. That doesn't change a whole lot regardless. That's necessary because we are taking the tank out of service. And we would still replace this 18-inch line that's got problems.
Is that option A?
That is option A.
Okay.
And there's estimated dollar amounts with each of those. So it was,
2.5, yeah.
2.5 million. Option B is essentially running a parallel line down this road following the Cedarview Montwell line. And essentially accomplishing the same thing. It costs more because it's more linear length. The benefits is it's a county road, so you have probably less right-of-way issues, but it is longer, and so we're projecting that it is approximately $3 million, which is slightly over the current funding package that you have right now. Option C would be to tie on to Cedarview's line. So option C is kind of what we plan on doing in the first place, but we included it just for your information. But the caveat there is it would have a wheeling fee associated with that.
I'll mention a little bit about that. So when they declined wanting to swap areas or swap infrastructure, they did give us an estimate or a proposal of what they would expect the wheeling fee to be. Now, currently we charge about $267,000 to them. That includes the water plus about $1. We call it an exchange fee. But basically, that's what we would utilize to pay for our infrastructure that they're impacting. They have proposed, I think on this line particularly, was it $295,000?
$295,000.
And we own the water. Meaning it's just $295,000. So we're charging them $1. They're wanting to charge us $295,000. So this is why it's coming before council, because we don't want to be held hostage, and $295,000 could add up really quickly if we go ahead and connect onto their line. We didn't anticipate that in the beginning of our negotiations, but because we've seen signs of they could be contentious and or detrimental to Roosevelt citizens in the future, we decided maybe let's look at some other options so that we can eliminate having to run through their infrastructure.
It's interesting to me that they would do that. What's stopping us if we said, okay, we'll do that? What's stopping us from charging them the same?
Nothing. And so what they had come up with, their engineer had come up with the $295 as an engineer's estimate of what impact would be on their line. And correct me, what was the linear foot of that?
10,000.
10,000 feet. So if you think about the water that they're utilizing from Roosevelt comes from Hayden, how many miles is that? Probably 10?
Yeah.
Close to 10 miles. So 10,000 feet is just under 2 miles. So if we apply the same, and that's a 12-inch line, what size line do we have coming from
24,
40.
18, just depends on.
So if we were to even just apply the same process to what we're charging them, it would be, what, 5 times what they would want to charge us, we would put them at about $15, and we would just raise our fees $15 plus the $1.67, so $16.67. But we don't want to get in that type
We have
of,
other options.
we don't want to get into that type of a, because we could, I mean, we have the upper hand, but I would rather not get into a battle with them, let's just do our own.
Another thing too, and
Pipeline.
we thought of this a little bit after, but even if we did tie into their line and they charge us a fee, we need to remember that they have a project in the hopper right now to tie onto Victory and pump Victory water and actually tie it into this area. So really, if you think about it, and what would you say, what percentage of our water use goes through this section?
It'd be like a third of the water coming down.
So a third of our water we'd be buying from Cedar View because of Victory. And instead, we would be using our own water that we could produce for a lot cheaper, so.
Long term, it's the better option, unfortunately.
And then the only other thing, option D, was just to replace the deteriorated line. It wouldn't solve any pressure issues for the people up there. It would get the IPS points off the system, but yeah, it only accomplishes a part of what we set out to do.
I believe staff's recommendation, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to get us moving along, but would be option A. And it may not be that route exactly, we'll fine tune it to where we cover every bit of our area with adequate pressure and flows. But our recommendation was option A, so.
The same from the engineers?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the only unfortunate thing is, we had hoped when we initially did this funding application, we set aside $1 million that was supposed to go to transite pipe replacement in town. With either of these options, it's gonna cost more to do this, and so we won't get as much transite pipe done, which is unfortunate for this scenario, but there is more funding, I guess, in the hopper. They just put a bunch of money back into the state's budget with the legislature, right?
Yeah, but if we're doing transite pipe replacement, that ought to be in conjunction with road projects anyway. And maybe we can team up with that and see if we get a little more time, do some,
State Street's a good example.
yeah, teaming up on that and try to see if there's funding that we can get from both sides to do those projects, because we're gonna tear our roads up when we do the transite.
Yeah.
But if we can look at some of those areas and do that in conjunction, it might buy us a little time to coordinate that a little better anyway.
Personally, I like the option A or B just because we're not gonna be beholden to anyone and we can take care of it ourselves. I prefer A, but just personally, but I was just curious.
The 2.5 does fit within the budget we have,
Yeah.
the grant we got.
Are there any obstacles coming across there that you could foresee? I know you said the line's not exact, I understand that, but
So this is pretty conceptual right now. There could be, I don't know what to tell you for sure. Obviously, there's some vertical things going on there.
right,
So could there be rock shelves? There could be some of those things. The other unknown is, we will be going cross country for a decent chunk of that. And so just making sure the landowners are okay, granting the right of way. It's not a huge deal, but even in the maintenance in the future, I mean, that's not gonna be a huge travel corridor. And so, it's away from a road. So there's some downsides to it. It fits within the budget and it still accomplishes the goals. But there could be other things that come up as well that we just don't know right now because we haven't explored every avenue until we kind of got some input from the council on the direction of where to look.
so, but the advantage is being under budget, we have a little wiggle room for hopefully some of those.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I don't know the exact dollar amounts off the top of my head, but the total project's like $2.9 million, right? And the city's bringing 100,000 of that to the table. And then this estimate, we're looking at a construction cost of 2.5.
Right.
And I don't even remember our engineering fees. $100,000 or something. I can find it.
So there's a little contingency. I won't say it's a lot.
No, I would, obviously,
We may have 10% left.
And this is something though, that, as we pursue and get down the road, it doesn't mean that we have to do this. It's just, I guess, giving them the direction of what to go for first. And then if it doesn't work out, then we can still do the line coming up from 121 up to the top, and then maybe save some money until we can accomplish what. So,
In our master plan, just so you guys know, that's one area that's, is designed that will actually permit, they're gonna grow that way. We have a lot of connections that's already been put in, been denied. And in our master plan from their design and what they're looking at, the growth will be in this area. So all this will, benefit that growth in the future.
So I think they're just looking for a consensus from the council on what direction to move.
And we'll need to come back to with the final plans and then have it ready for the bid package, so.
so you just need us to make a motion to support you on going with whichever option.
If you feel comfortable doing it.
I move we go with option A and explore that one first.
Okay, we have a motion for an option A. Do we have another motion?
I got a second.
We have a second for option A by Councilman Flower. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey, thanks for all the pictures and explanation. Well, I was enough to kind of tell what you're trying to do. That's all I needed.
I'm glad it wasn't 6 people in.
I would like more pictures next time.
You got real pictures, not
Mr. Bake. Mr. Bake.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have for council's consideration tonight the Permanent Community Impact Fund Board list, CIB list. So each year we need to update the 1 year, and we are recommended to do a 2 to 5 year. The 1 year is the one that is really important. That's one that's required. So we met with different department heads and talked over what our needs are. So we have recommendations to council. And do keep in mind, this is council's list. So feel free to change anything that you like on here. But if we want to go for any project in CIB, it does need to be on the 1 year list. So this year, just to call out a couple, I have the prior year's list on the left-hand column, and then the staff recommendation on the right, and I'll just call it the differences. For the 1 year list, we removed the ball field and the nature park. We went to CIB and we're moving forward with those. The changes on this year's list is we have secondary water as our number 2 priority. And then we changed the airport fueling station to airport facility upgrades. And then we did do some minor changes to the amounts, as amounts have changed drastically on those. On the 2 to 5 year list, we removed secondary water and sewer construction and added one as irrigation system upgrade. And those are the only changes that we recommended. Again, the 2 to 5 year list is more of an internal list, helps us keep our priorities on track of where we need to. The 1 year list is one that we do have to have in place. And so we have one like street reconstruction that we used when we had to go back for our State Street project. And we were lucky we had that one on there. Are there any questions, concerns? And again, this is your list, so we can make any edits, changes that you like. And then we'll report this back to UBAG to get.
Who determined the priority, just out of curiosity? Was that staff?
Department heads, yes. This is all
Okay. Just curious.
Josh, can I clarify on one of them, in case you have a question, that bottom one, that irrigation system upgrade, it's actually an irrigation system upgrade for the golf course. You get them adequate volume and pressure, and, because they're having issues, so that's what that is.
That's gonna be, that'll be hard.
Yeah.
And as you noticed on this year's list, we did numbers 1 and 7. So the priorities are supposed to be where our priorities are, but as things come up, we can adjust the priorities.
Right. The other question I would have is, I know we've talked a lot about the cemetery, and it's probably not for tonight, but I'd like to, I know there's been a lot of discussion on the property that we already own and whether the cemetery is gonna go there or where. And so I think it is definitely something we have to answer. I do think that there's probably some question marks as to where that should go. And so we probably ought to look at options unless everybody's just settled in with utilizing that property south of where the cemetery currently is. But I know there's questions and concerns. That's time commercial real estate. Do we utilize it for cemetery? Do we find another place?
I have spoken with Mr. Eschler on this and as our cemetery, he's over our cemetery. He's gotten with a couple of council members, and I can't remember who he has on his list for that cemetery, exploration committee to revitalize that so we can start that discussion. Does anybody remember who's on that?
I think I am.
John and Rowdy.
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm on it.
I know I have it written down.
For me.
Sure.
I think he was nominated for the council. It was a work session. I
That's
don't
fine.
think you were there. Anyway.
Whatever you need from me.
If it is, Drew will get a hold of it. Get that started, because we do need to get on that right away. Time is ticking. No pun intended, but for the cemetery. Yeah. Thank you, man.
Any questions on
Do you need a motion or anything, or just?
Yeah, we can have a motion to have this be our priority list, and we can take it to you back.
Okay, I move it to be our list then, our, Community Impact Fund Board list, or CIB list, I don't know what you call it.
That works, yeah. we can-
I'll second.
motion and a second by Councilman Allen? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is unanimous. We just get along tonight.
Here's another one back.
Just clarify.
Go ahead.
And the motion is accepting that as the 1 year
I think so, I need to clarify that it's the 1 year
priority.
party list, okay. I clarify that.
Thank you.
And everybody still agree?
Aye.
Yes.
Next.
Okay, next item, these are discussion items, so again, no formal action is requested. The first one is the surplus resolution. If you've been out to our parking lot, we have a lot of vehicles that we need to surplus. I've worked with Ms. Stout, she is gonna work with using the public surplus website. It goes out nationally. If you've seen our wonderful benches out in the lobby, I actually purchased those through the public surplus website from UB Tech. So here in town, but it is a great website because it levels the playing field. However, our current resolution does have a clause in there that no city employee can benefit in any way from the surplus item. A lot of the items that do get bid on are from employees because they see the items, and since we are going through a surplus website, I'm going to be working with Grant to make a change in there for council's consideration for next meeting to remove that clause, because we are going to go through that website. It is a completely level playing field. Employees have no benefit other than, I guess, seeing with their own eyes. But when you list products or items on there, you're requesting the public to come see them as well. So I just want to put that for council's consideration here. No formal action tonight, but if there's any discussions, concerns before we rework that resolution, I'm happy to answer those.
You want the K9, Mr. Bank?
What's that?
K9 also.
Yes, there is a wonderful example. Thank you, Chief. George Spencer.
We surplus the K9. We've done that in a ceremonial type thing. Our resolution does not allow that. We do have one to surplus. We're waiting for at least that to be an
So
exception.
what he's getting at is the one that's been with the dog usually purchases the dog, and where they're an employee, they wouldn't be able to do that. So
Yeah, technically I purchased it and then I gift it to them, but same thing, yeah.
Which is incredibly important because those canines get really used to their handlers, and it does not make sense to try to surplus that to another family. Any questions, concerns?
No.
Move on.
just
Okay, next thing, fee schedule. These have been discussed a little bit before, but we want to bring them back. As you know, we have some recommendations from Aaron Brown at the golf course. He did take this to the golf committee for their consideration. I believe we do have Mr. Arnold here. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I feel like it's very justified, should go through.
And they do have a formal recommendation to get this approved by council. We wanted to leave any time for any discussion if you have before it is on the next agenda. We'll have a public hearing to modify our fee schedule, but Is there any questions from?
Do they, I just had one, when we have tournaments, I don't remember seeing anything, they just charge 18 in a cart for each player, is that the
Well,
normal?
there is a different amount there.
I
I'll make sure you get that clarified. in the next
Fine.
meeting.
Do you remember?
I thought it was gonna bump it to 33, and I was wondering if we could, like API and that wanted to keep it at 32 per player
Yeah.
on tournament wise, but
Maybe
something
we
to,
can clarify before it comes before. council.
Yeah, if you could do that, I, like I said, I looked at it and I wasn't sure, and I just wanna make sure that we're transparent and, you know, people know that one.
Yes.
And if it's the same, that's fine, I just didn't know.
I will get specific clarification next week.
Okay.
With that, I'll turn it over to Edwin for a quick update on Aquatic Center.
Save the best for last.
Definitely.
You need to go about 30 more minutes though to help Mary Ann out.
Yes, that's a little bit. That's for my phone.
So after last council, I mean, I apologize, I don't have something on the screen, but I do have something for you guys to see in your guys' packet there. Remember last city council work session, we did go over a majority of the rates that were in question. Today, I'm actually just gonna go over the facility reservations, as those are the ones that we had a few suggestions and some input on that. The suggestions made last time were based on the pricing of staffing costs would be one, suggestion to add to those fees. And then if we would use a bracket, just not have it so many brackets. Remember I had on there, it was quite a few breaking it from 50 going up. So you could see the different tables, how they're listed with the current facility reservation rates that have been approved as the first table and how that was done. The second table is taking into effect the staffing costs. You can see for one pool, we typically staff 4 lifeguards, a custodian, and front desk. The minimum cost for that is based off the pay scale that has been passed as well, if they were all on step 1. And then the maximum in the next column for that, if they were all on the max of their pay step. The reason why I have an approximate underneath that has the asterisk on it is in case if we max the occupancy, and we usually will try to bring another lifeguard and another custodian in, and that's why you see a second number underneath the first one. And then you can see how that would list for both pools. We typically staff 8 lifeguards, 1 to 2 custodians, and 1 front desk. So now then if you go down with the proposal, you can see below, still going off of the number listing that I have listed, indoor or outdoor, and then if you combine both together. And as last time, I'm curious of any comments on this. I think Don had a few.
Yeah, I had a question too. So if you have 1 to 100, does that mean and they're just using the indoor pool, so you're charging $250 as your new proposed? Is that 4 lifeguards, 1 custodian, 1 desk? And what if it goes to 200? Would you still have the same number?
We probably need to see about getting a second lifeguard, which is where that second number comes into effect.
Okay, and then if it goes to 300, you need to get a 6th lifeguard?
So with that one, this is the one where I'm curious if we want to drop it. This is where, as we were talking about, it's hard to calculate the number with how we've had it set. Because it makes sense for the first 100 to 200, but after that, the anomaly is kind of that 201 to 300 because the outdoor pool can only hold 250 around that deck anyways. So.
Also, I'm trying to understand, so if I have a group of 100, the new fee would be $250. You're saying that would cost $240 approximately for the lifeguards?
Just for the staffing alone.
Or if they're at the higher rate, it could be $310 or?
If we have to bring in an additional lifeguard and custodian.
Okay.
For that minimum.
Or it could be so we charge $250, but we could actually lose money on it?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out it's a big umbrella I'm trying to fit in there where I don't make it where we're gouging, but at the same time that you know, we're not losing a whole lot. And it is a really hard amount to try to fit in the lower and the
One-
higher. You know.
One of the things I talked to Edwin before is, to me, one of the things that difficult is counting and figuring those numbers out. I'm thinking maybe do small group up to, I don't know, 50, 75, it's this rate, and anything over, it's this rate, and call it good. I think, you know, I don't know. Change it for one poll to two polls, obviously, you know, that could change, but I don't know how the council feels on that. I just don't like all the trying to, you know, count the people and, oh, you're 201, we gotta charge you extra, or 190, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it just feels silly at that point. One more person to me doesn't, yeah, let them in, but I don't know that
No.
the county to me just seems like a extra clerical thing that we have to try to somehow account for, where maybe we just stipulate a small group is under this much, this is our rate, and anything over that, this is our rate, and because we have to hire lifeguards and I don't know, I'm just throwing that out as a thought.
We usually get 1 to 100 or 100 or more.
So typical ones will be under 100. Well, actually, they've been really probably close. We have a lot that are under 50 because they know they can get that cheap deal of $150 if they keep it under 50. So it does actually.
So if you only have 50, you still have to have the 4 lifeguards and custodian and desk person.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, we're losing money.
So right now, yes, currently we are losing quite a bit.
And I do think it's warranted to raise the price. I wonder, I mean, that is a considerable amount that we're raising to, which I'm not totally against, but maybe.
So now I'm kind of finding the middle ground is what we're trying to get at right now, is what I'm saying.
How many reservations do you, that reserve the whole pool do you have?
So right now, I guarantee that the summer will be completely booked by early June.
How many?
Like the entire summer.
At
What was that?
least.
How many is that?
So every night, Tuesday through Saturday from,
Really?
yeah.
8:45, right?
Yeah, 7 to 8:45. Every single night.
I've tried to book it before. Yeah, if you get, by June, you don't book it.
Yeah, I mean, there's people in here that have seen how quick those are like wildfire.
Yep.
I mean, that's why we try to offer even sooner now at the beginning of the calendar year. I mean, I'm already booking stuff this summer already, so.
And I've already done the party too.
Do we have people from out of the city that,
Yes, and in fact, we get some from Vernon.
and do we charge them a different rate?
No, we don't, no.
One thing to keep in mind with these rates, this is, so Edwin's, what he's done here in the research is just what it costs to staff it. We're not taking account any O&M on the pool.
Right.
We have a big group, that's a lot of wear and tear on the pool that a group of 50 might not have. So we might need to do the same on lifeguards, but we still have to upkeep the pool. There's a lot of wear and tear that a group, if we have 450 people there, they're gonna beat up the pool a lot. And we're not calculating, we just looked at lifeguards.
Do you ever have groups that are that big, 400?
Yes, we have actually. A lot of times it's, a good one that comes to mind every time is when Crescent Point was around, we offered free swim beginning of summer and it crammed the place. We were at occupancy and we have to count on those so we can make sure we're not going overboard. It hasn't been as much as of recent, as Crescent Point isn't around right now, they've actually changed. So it hasn't been as often. But I wanted to make sure that we still account for something with the upper range. If we do go numbers, yeah.
I don't know.
I'm open.
Yeah, and if you feel like, I'm open to the council if they want to count numbers. I just think that, you know.
What if we did 1 to 150 and then anything above 150, and we don't have to go clear to the 650, but currently our highest rate for the indoor and outdoor pool is 350. And so if we were around 450 or 500 on both pools, for a group above 150, I mean, what does that work? What's the normal rate if you were just to go and swim?
Normal rate
in open
for daily admission you're talking?
Yeah.
So youth is $3.65 currently, and adults are $5.25.
Or 5 1/4
for adults.
So if you had 151 people, so you
At $9.
500 rate, so you're $500 divided by 151, you're still only at 330, so you're still at a heavily discounted rate than if you were just to go open swim.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I
So
see.
if if 500 was our highest, something like that, and it went from 151 to capacity would be like 400 and 500. And then 1 to 150 would be 250 to 350. And we just had the two things like you're saying. I still feel like we accomplished most of what we tried to do, and they still, even if they barely break the $150 mark, or the 150 person mark, they're still getting it at a really discounted rate, $2 off, basically, for an adult.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to consider is if we're getting people from not in Roosevelt City that aren't, paying taxes, I don't know if we can, but it'd be nice to charge an extra $50 or something.
Stuff we're trying to figure out with the resident.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just,
Agenda.
okay.
The resident versus non-resident.
Yeah.
But I think,
Golf course there, so I'm trying to figure out what to do.
I just think if they're gonna come from other, I don't mind them coming, that's fine, but they're not paying the taxes to subsidize it, and I think there should be an extra, it doesn't have to be exorbitant, but, something on top, just say as a city tax kind of thing or something for.
I think this was brought up before. If there's a way that we can say, this is the rate, if you live in the city, you get a discount.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, we're gonna charge people more.
And I think that's a lot. And we talked about that with the golf course also. And so do we need to pad those rates just a little bit more and then give the discount? The other thing that came up is how do you police that? One of the things that we've talked about several ways, but that's for another night of discussion. But think about that. How do we police it if we end up doing that?
And one thing I can add with reservations like this, something to keep in mind, you never want your facility to be 100% booked. If it's 100% booked, we're charging too little. Our goal is that 80 to 90% booked, because that shows we're competitive. But we also want people to think, is this something that we really want to do? Rather than just booking it just because it's so cheap.
I actually
comment on that. If we don't book, we save more money.
We can't, if we're not looking at it.
That's what I'm saying. If at the rates they're at, and if we're not covering our costs, if we don't book, then we actually save more money because we tell the staff to go home, shut the doors, and we actually save more money.
The question is how we want to approach it.
I actually like to maybe set the 450, 550, and I think with groups, if you know the groups, you just say, are you from Roosevelt or Vernal and or whatever, or you live in Roosevelt or not, and then you can say
This current system at least does handle for that.
right. And I think on reservations, I think you could handle that a little easier, and then we charge 450, but if you're a resident, okay, we'll give you 400, like the mayor said, or whatever. But I like, me personally, I like just having two lines there.
Yeah.
And I don't care what the number is, 0 to 150, 0 to 100, but.
And one other thing is that just came to my attention. So I think we can work out some numbers as well, because I do have a couple small ideas, but
yeah.
So if we go 1 to 50, for example, and it's a 250, that puts us at $5 even, which is still a little bit less than the normal rate.
That's adults, so yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe we massage that down to 200 to 225, and then maybe keep the 350 at the both pools or something like that, just so that when they are getting a benefit to running a group rate, you know what I mean, and not paying a full rate. I think they're really, really close. And does anybody, I mean, maybe some of the council just absolutely like what you have to. It's very good information.
Yeah, the only thing I have, like I told you, is just the county, and I'd like to get it to simplify that to just, here's our two
different rates.
Vernal, it's one flat fee of 600, and they can hold up to 345 people, I believe is what it says,
So maybe we, two rates is, I mean, I think we're doing a favor.
I think that makes it easier for you, makes it easier for people. They can say it's either here or here, and
Yeah,
out?
Like how far out do they do in advance?
Or do they book out for the year? Well, of
I have
course,
to ask when their photography, see how much they book out.
We
how
have
much is utilized.
Do they have similar times, 7 to like 8:45, something like that, or?
It's usually after hours of the public hours, yeah.
I think you've done a great job. I just, like I said, I gave you my recommendation
Can I note that, sorry to cut you off, Councilman.
You're all right.
So you guys are saying like 1 to 150 roughly for the first bracket, and I know we're still like some wiggle room you're talking there.
Mhm.
And then 151 and up, and it's kind of like the third row, we're seeing that 452.
Yeah.
550 roughly.
Right.
There's some wiggle room of that, but that's kind of.
And we'll do some numbers and we'll kind of.
And I still like the idea, if we're getting people from outside of Roosevelt, put the rate higher, but if they say they're in Roosevelt, then we just tell them they get a discount.
In the winter months, when just the indoors open, do you book out?
So it changes the variable a bit on that, as you saw with like the many activities that are happening in the school year. We've got lots of that. So we only usually book on, it's only Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah.
I would say that's roughly around where Josh was mentioning, around that 75-80% in the off season. So people are kind of like, I don't want to get wet to go out and freeze out. Anyway, any other questions I can help answer? Or?
No, thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
All right, that's my agenda. That means we're getting close to the end. Purchase orders went down. Are there any questions on those?
I asked mine, so I'm good.
Why are you spending so much money? Is that what you?
Well, we had a couple things in there that were, but most stuff's approved. I appreciate all the work Rhonda does in showing, this was approved from this capital project. Here we had a little extra cost in the water, but those things happen. And the big thing with the pool, speaking of the pool, which we will probably have a discussion later, right, Rhonda, about
the amount again, because that's
56 plus.
$56,000
for 1 month of gas.
1 month.
Can you imagine how many fireworks shows you could get with that?
Just shut it down. December. January, whatever.
What, you know, do you remember? A lot of research with it, and he and I will be presenting on the April the 4th, what our options are, so that we don't have another surprise like that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's because colder temperatures and an increase in gas prices.
Yeah, we're buying in very
Index
light,
price,
very light summer. It's
which went
like-
from a typical $5 per unit to December was 14 and January was 50.
And Edwin wanted the pool at 105 degrees.
Well, but Mayor, going to our discussion earlier, that was, Mayor, going to our discussion though, and again, nothing against swim team, but they have to cool the pool down and then you have to warm it up after, and there's a substantial cost there. And that, I know you're meeting with them next week and that needs to be addressed as well, but I think it's important to point that out.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions on the purchase order?
I move we approve.
Okay. Second by Councilman Flower. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Bank, why don't you just stand up there?
I'll try to be brief.
We're gonna put you all like in a row. So.
I know, I need an exercise.
Yeah, I guess.
So I've got just a couple items for council to be aware of. One is, you notice we do not have the interfaith budget on the council agenda. We worked up a unique idea. Interfaith wanted to use the budget for their lunches as they're eating as a group together. Well, in an effort to streamline that to make it easier, when we budget for next year, we'll put that as a discretionary line item in my budget, and then I can just provide food for them. When I say I, the city, but since they're meeting here in the city as well, that removes that need from their committee to manage a budget if it's providing the meals there. So that's why it's gone, but I wanted to keep you updated of why that's not in there. Second item, I wanted you to be aware that we have been meeting with K&K Sanitation, Councilman Buzmark, Councilman Clower, the mayor, myself, and multiple members of the staff. We, as council has instructed us, we've been working on negotiating terms of a new agreement with them. We have submitted our recommended changes for a new agreement to them, It is in their ballpark right now. They're going to review that and get back to us, about a month.
By the 21st of March.
By the 21st of March. So at that point, they made an offer to us, we made a counter offer, and now we'll wait to hear back from them. But just so you're in the loop, we have been meeting with them. The staff has been very involved in getting all the data of what is needed to do there. So, any questions on those two items? Third item, I did get a notice from UDOT. They will be resurfacing State Route 121. So just so you're aware, around April 10th, they should be starting to do that. So look for some changes on that road. Please pass the word. You know, any construction, anything goes on council, definitely you will get a phone call. Just so you're aware that this will be going on from hours 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We can make copies of this flyer if anybody has or would like a copy of that as well.
121. If you haven't seen the changes on there already, drive up it. That's a pretty good ruts.
And I will say, we had a discussion this meeting with our department at Kirby. There are going to be a lot of potholes. As the weather changes and warms, it's going to get worse. There are a lot already. Our streets department is getting out. They're filling with cold mix. They're doing a wonderful job. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. But they do have a plan of attack. We'll get hot mix in and we get it completely fixed. But I will tell you, if you want to see what great shape our roads are in, go over to Vernal. Theirs are terrible right now. So hats off to our department. They're doing a good job keeping up. I can attest for that. And the final thing, I always like to give a shout out to some of the staff for great work they're doing. Tonight, I just want to, and he has no idea I'm doing this, I want to point out Grant. He's been phenomenal. I've worked with a lot of attorneys, and he is truly phenomenal in what he does. He's very responsive. He's always there when we need him. And our legal meeting, he might struggle with us at times because we have tons of questions for him. But I just want to point out what an incredible asset he is to the city. He puts in a lot of time for, I'll be honest, the amount of money we spend on him is very well spent. He is an incredible attorney. His knowledge is phenomenal. So I just want to give a shout out to him and tell you what an amazing attorney the city has.
And thanks, Grant.
Thank you. Questions?
You should have done that in the beginning.
I'll see what you're going to say.
Great, thank you. Do we have any reports from the council committees?
Interfaith met last month. I met with them, and they've got a person now in charge, and Marianne or Marmalade or Marmaduke or whatever you call her. She is the secretary, and I think they've got a good plan going forward. They're going to meet regularly. We have a meeting tomorrow at noon. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to meet with some of the other committees I'm on, so I apologize. Just my schedule doesn't fit that. And just compliment again what a great job the staff in the city and the administration, everyone does here with like safety meetings and helping staff. And I'm a big proponent of let's keep our staff. It's much easier to keep our staff that care about the city and know what's going on than to always be hiring people. And it's just a great staff, and it's so great to be a part of it. So I just appreciate all their efforts, and I try to come to all the safety meetings and not fall asleep through any of them. Most people don't, other than, was it Justin that fell over? That was the craziest thing. So, right, perfect timing. But anyway, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman White?
Just be aware the ULCT has their conference coming up in St. George in April 19th through the 21st, I believe. If you're so inclined.
I think Brock's reached out, hasn't he?
Yeah, you're registered. And Brock should have reached out to everybody. I didn't get a choice. Sounds good to me. Anything else? Okay, we've already discussed a lot of things that I've been working on or working with, so can't think of anything else.
Arts Parks and Rec, they've got the spring fling coming up April 15th.
will be next door here. So that'll be a fun new thing they're trying. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Any items for future discussion? No, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second by Captain Allen.